Hey, so I would like to talk about kind of actually what we were chatting about in class before it started the other day. Um, Basically, where a lot of music classes, especially as children get older and music class turns into band, orchestra, choir, marching band, that kind of thing, it's it's a subject that requires a lot of kind of coordination with what you're doing at home. And so that interacts with, parent involvement, but especially connecting it to low income students like we were discussing the other day. There's a lot of refusal slash inability to pay for basic materials that you need even when they are unbelievably discounted for students. It's just an expense that a lot of families don't seem to be able to afford, which is just how it is. And I'm thinking right now of a strings class, but it trickles all the way down. I taught elementary most of the year, and even you had your recorders, you had sheet music for choir. That was a big issue for parents. Didn't want to pay $3.50 for a semester's worth of music. And again, coming from the background, I went to some really really nice private schools pretty much my entire life, and that's new, I guess, is the best way to put it. That's the reality that I did not grow up in. And I guess what I want to turn this into not just me complaining about stuff or realizing hardships that exist in low income areas. But I guess some of the things I did this year that were positive that helped combat that were I was basically just building collections of stuff, and I do that with I'm kind of a hoarder anyway, but I have I have 13 guitars and a banjo, and I just love to collect music related things, be that instruments in literature and that type of thing. Got kind of a library going too. And so I ended up doing that was a big help was that I just ended up I went around and to other schools and to some cheap stores in the area and just bought a whole bunch of random things that I thought kids might be wanting to use or borrow over the course of the year. I'm talking mostly about my elementary school. And so I, I got a bunch of kazoos and extra guitar strings, because an early reality that crushed me is I've been teaching guitar for a really long time. Since I was 10 years old, I was teaching guitar for as kind of a part-time job on and off, and done a whole lot of that. And it crushed me that I just couldn't really teach my students outside of school this year without basically doing it free of charge. And I did that 4 or 5 times over the year. But there were students who wanted regular lessons that would have demanded a lot of both of our times, and I didn't have the time to do that in the first place, and very few of them could even afford their own instrument. So I would have to provide a guitar in the first place, and I did that. I'd like to say I did that when I could, but I did it probably less than I could this year, because it was it's a pretty major inconvenience, especially if you have a student regularly, week to week. That's which is what you want to do when you're a teacher, and you want to foster that relationship week to week with an instrument. You just need to have consistent contact, and it crushed me that I couldn't do that early on. So anyway, coming back from that, I ended up just collecting a whole bunch of random materials, and other music teachers I've talked to say that you just end up with this massive collection by the time you're 20 years into it or something, where you basically have everything anybody could ever need just by picking up random little things over the years. And that's why I'm so hesitant to have a what I call a cart job, where you just have all of your materials in a cart and you'll go around the school from class to class. Something I'm really trying to avoid, because the way I'd like to teach is I'm kind of a hands-on music teacher. I like to get out as many instruments as possible and do things, kinesthetically. And you can't do that with a cart job. So either way, I end up having a whole bunch of random stuff to add to my ridiculous instrument collection, and it made a pretty decent difference this year, especially with stuff like choir music. That was a big issue. I just ended up I bought a whole bunch of choir music. It was really easy, and no one ever had to worry about really bringing it back and forth because I pretty much always had stuff, at least for a certain section of the second semester. I had a whole bunch of extras, and it was just such an easy problem solver. It would have caused countless issues over the course of the semester, but I just had a bunch of extra stuff. And I realize that's not a reality for a lot of teachers to just buy a whole bunch of materials, but even a lot of music teachers who are not well off have been telling me that you gotta build your collection up, and it's a problem solver, and it solves problems you don't necessarily even know exist yet. Just having a bunch of extra materials, and especially because I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of music programs with kids, plays and musicals and mini programs like that. It's going to be in collecting a whole bunch of props and costumes and inflatable instruments and stuff like that. My cooperating teacher, was kind of drilling that into me all year, that you just got to end up building your teaching repertoire, and then your teaching material repertoire, all of your stuff. Uh, so I mean, and that's probably just one easy fix, that's something of which I'm capable, that can solve a whole bunch of problems that I don't necessarily even know exist yet, in terms of students not being able to afford, or the another thing I was talking about was some students, they can afford it and their parents can afford it, but their home life won't allow for it. Plenty of kids with the recorder, and some of the older kids I taught towards the end of the year with some of their string instruments. Their parents, they basically say, my mom and dad are working all day. They come home and it's late, and they don't want me making so much noise, no matter, even if it is music class, that's not super important to them. Um, I'm obviously paraphrasing quite a bit, but uh, especially with recorders, if your kid's not good at recorder, believe me, it can be really tough to listen to a recorder that is not being played well. And the only way to get better at recorder is to just play it a lot. And I'm a big proponent of, I mean, sometimes quantity is what you're looking for in terms of practice. Just do it over and over and over and over again, um, with basic music concepts, and because it should be fun, even if that's what you're doing. And some home lives just don't allow for that to happen. And so you talk about them coming in early sometimes, but you know, I'm rambling now. Either way, good stuff.